Hey everybody, I'm the Drink Pro. Today I've got 3 different private selections from the Naptown Bourbon Club. What's up everybody? Thanks for joining me. Drink Pro here with you yet again. I'm so happy you could join me today. Please keep liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends, joining the Patreon. Everything you can do to support the channel is so greatly appreciated. Just a heads up, this episode is going to go long, so I'm going to include time codes in the description. If you just want to see me taste one or the other of these whiskeys, if you just want to hear me give nosing notes or flavor notes, check the time codes. You can bounce around, find what you want to watch. The Naptown Bourbon Club has been a great supporter of my channel for a while now, and I'm really excited to try 3 different private selections that they've done in recent months. Now, what is a private selection? It's very much like a store pick, which you've probably heard me talk about a lot. One reason I tend to use the term differently, though, is because a store pick in my mind is somebody from the store goes down and picks the barrel with some friends or what have you. Versus a private selection is a group of individuals buying a barrel and then selling the barrel to their friends or keeping it for themselves. So is it meaningfully different? Not really. There's some regulations about how you can sell things and who you can distribute through. Those things become more restrictive. Today I've got 3 different private barrels from the Naptown Bourbon Club. The first one I'm going to try is the lowest proof, and it's Old Forster. Now, Old Forster has very recently sort of made a splash in the bourbon world by moving their store picks and their private selections from 90 proof to 100 proof. And they're also now doing barrel strength private selections and store picks. Some people might see that as a negative, but it's not always a negative, especially with something like Old Forster. I can tell you now, I've had store picks at barrel strength from Old Forster, and they're not going to be for everybody. Understanding what you crave out of the flavors of a whiskey is critical to being a smart consumer. So I actually kind of like the fact that they've got this 90 proof pick. It's actually one of the last ones ever done, which is also kind of a fun fact about the bottle. It's definitely going to be a more mild flavor profile because of that relatively low proof. And that's going to be sort of counter to a relatively high proof pick here that we've got. We've actually got 2 different picks from Old 55. Now, I talked about Old 55 already earlier this week because I recently went on a pick with them and Indiana Bourbon. Just put that video up earlier in the week. Naptown Bourbon Club decided to do 2 different barrels they selected out of the ones they tasted from Old 55. I've got an entire bottle that I purchased of, this is the Ollie's Chicken and Waffles. And the other version is called Twisted Sister. Now, I got a sample of this. Shout out to Kevin Smith for providing me this sample. Whew. Now, as I mentioned with the Old Forester, it's a relatively low proof in the world of picks. It's 45% alcohol. The Old 55 single barrel picks are actually bottled at barrel strength. The Old Forester is 90 proof, 45%. The Twisted Sister is 55.6%. And the Ollie's Chicken and Waffles is 57.6%. So that's going to be the highest proof of the bunch, but it's relatively close between Twisted Sister and Ollie's Chicken and Waffles. This is notably lower proof, so I'm going to start with it. Let's dig into this Old Forester pick. Now, a lot of times with store picks and private selections, they have these fun stickers on them. This one is no exception. It's got a fun prescription sticker. And what it says, I'll just give you a little taste of it. It says, use for COVID-19 relief, directions, pour into glass, drink until the glass is empty, or until adequately feeling good. Another fun thing to note on this bottle is that it tells you on this label that it's benefiting the Tatum Parker Project. So one of the things that Naptown Bourbon does is they charge a little bit more for their average bottle of whiskey, but then they take all of the profits and put it towards these really wonderful charities like the Tatum Parker Project. The Old 55 store picks are benefiting the Charge Syndrome Foundation. So both of these barrel picks are going towards good causes, and I really like that about the Naptown Bourbon Club's store picks and private barrel selections. So enough preamble, let's get into some tasting. Oh, I love the sound too. That real cork. Oh, God, the smell on this is so good, guys. I love the smell of Old Forester in general, and this is a really especially good one. So right off the bat, I get tons of berries. I get blackberries, black raspberries, raspberries, blueberries. It is just a berry explosion. I get some cherry, dark, sweet cherry, too. You definitely get this sort of almost a tropical note, like tropical fruit in here as well. Maybe like a coconut, like a sweetened coconut. The banana note's definitely there. Classic Classic old Forster. It's such a beautifully complex nose, guys. I love what's happening here. I mean, I'm getting vanilla and caramel and cinnamon. Even like a cinnamon red hot, it's that sweetened cinnamon. I'm getting a little bit of like an almond extract quality. And I get just a hint of like a pine, maybe a cedar. Let's go with cedar. I think it's a cedar. Just like a honeysuckle note too. The sweetness from like a sugary vanilla dessert is definitely present, but I also get this hint of a floral note, which is sort of separate, but very sweet as well. Oh. Making messes already, okay. God, it's so beautifully fruity, and you guys know I'm a sucker for a fruity whiskey. That is my jam. Okay, let's give it a taste. Ooh. Oh man. God, that's so nutty. The mid-palate and the finish are super nutty. Oh, man, that's interesting. I got mixed feelings about that, actually. Let me clarify. It's not because it's bad that I have mixed feelings about it. It's because I love the fruitiness so much, I want to taste it more than I do. Yeah, you get like a Honey Nut Cheerios vibe right off the bat on the palate, the first thing you taste. But the fruitiness on the nose is almost gone after tasting it. I go back and smell it, and I get this really interesting sort of sourness. Not like a pungent, expired sourness. Much more intentional. A desirable sourness like you would get from, you know, some of the fruits that are sour. Sour cherries are a classic example. Yeah, you get vanilla right away, Honey Nut Cheerio flavor, immediately into a really prominent nuttiness. I get like a black walnut. I get like a pecan. And it's really prominent, but there's a sweetness underlaying it. And then the finish is long. It's got a lot of nuttiness and woodiness. You get this nice, beautiful pepper tingle in the finish. Ugh, nutty and oaky and wonderful. Now, usually I rail against whiskeys that are very different on the nose and palate. But I'm not going to do that here because the palate is different enough that it's a total change. One of the things that disappoints me is when the nose is just all blueberries, all fruit, and then I taste it and I get some fruit, but not all fruit. And then I get some other things that I didn't smell at all. When I was smelling this, I was getting the nuttiness, I was getting the woodiness, but I also got this big, beautiful fruit. On the palate, for me personally, zero fruit. All the nuttiness came through, all the woodiness came through, but I didn't get any fruit flavors. But that's okay. I'm actually fine with that, because it wasn't a disappointment. It was different. It was intriguing. Expectations definitely structure your reality. So if you're expecting fruit and you get some fruit but not a lot, it's disappointing. But if you're expecting fruit and then you get a steak, you aren't mad about it. You're just confused, but you're happy. That's what I am, confused and happy. All right, great. That's all getting cut. I'm not going to include any of that shit. Let's go to the Old 55. Oh, wow, I tell you what, after the pour, the Twisted Sister really stands out. The pour of the Twisted Sister was much more prominent. Just, you know, the wafting of the scent from the pour. All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you definitely know this is corn whiskey. That's not a bad thing. It's got that wonderful, sweet corn quality on it. And you got to remember, this is going to be older. This is bigger batches. This is a very different process and project than what's going on here at Old 55. This is not an apples to oranges comparison, which is why I'm doing them as separate entities, because it doesn't make sense to compare these two. They're trying to do different things. I get sweet corn, vanilla, and caramel. There is a little bit of ethanol on the nose of this, but that's not that surprising because it's 57, almost 58%. One thing I find with a lot of these Old 55 picks is they really lean on those sweet aromatics. I get butterscotch, I get caramel, I get sweet corn, I get vanilla. They really lean into that area, which is a delicious, wonderful quality from a whiskey. So I ain't mad about that at all. Now this one, I'm getting an almost nuttiness out of it. I'm getting like green oak, like fresh green oak wood. Oh yeah, I'm starting to get the chocolate now. The longer you smell this, the longer you let this stuff sit, it just beautifully opens up. The reality is when you're drinking high proof whiskey, you've got to let it breathe because that ethanol is undeniable, unmistakable. It takes over the nose. You've got to find a way to let it breathe. And a lot of times that just means put it in a glass, let it sit there for 10 minutes. No worries, no problems. It's not going to ruin the whiskey. 10 minutes in a glass, open to the air, come back to it. You'll be glad you did. The chocolate and the honey are really cool. That's different. I like that. I mean, they call this chicken and waffles, so I was expecting a maple syrup note. But I'm really not getting one. That sticky sweetness to me doesn't present as maple syrup. I'm getting more caramel and honey. But it is sticky sweet. I mean, that's what you're thinking of. It's sticky sweet. So maybe it's not maple syrup. Maybe it's Mrs. Buttersworth imitation syrup. Well, that's disappearing, but whatever. Whatever generic brand you can buy. I don't know. It's breakfast syrup. This is breakfast syrup. That's the word I'm looking for. Let's go ahead and get a good nosing here of B, Twisted Sister. Very different. It relies a lot less on that sweet aromatic. The corn is definitely prominent, but this isn't the sweet corn. This is much more grain focused. This is a grainier nose. Oh, this one's got cinnamon. This one's got a real cinnamon quality to it. I smell coffee. That is a note I almost never get. I almost never get a coffee quality on a whiskey, but I'm smelling it in this one. It's just a hint of it, but it's there. That's really throwing me off. Oh, I get the sweet mint. Oh, I love it. Mint is a note that comes up a lot for me in bourbon, in American whiskey, and I almost always don't like it. I almost always go, oh, that's minty, that's herbal, it's bitter, it's not what I'm looking for. But when you can get that sweet mint, when you get like an almost like a peppermint candy mint, oh, it's good. That's good stuff. See, I actually get more maple syrup out of Twisted Sister. Very interesting. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, wow. Oh, the Kentucky Hug. Man. So, the first one, 57.6, it's no joke. That's going to be toasty. You're going to feel that heat. But I actually think I find more spiciness on the Twisted Sister. It's lower proof, but it's got a lot more barrel flavor in the mid-palate and the finish. And there's this really spicy, almost hot note that's going on. Definitely you've got barrel tannins, you've got woodiness, you've got pepper, but there's almost like a pepper heat, like a spicy pepper, not like a black pepper. The Twisted Sister actually drinks a little sweeter to me and a little bit more spicy. There's a lot more jolting around going on in the Twisted Sister, which is surprising because it's lower proof. But the chicken and waffles is a really wonderful kind of singular journey. Whereas the Twisted Sister, there's so much going on. Oh, and the pepper is still lingering on my tongue. That is a long finish. Wow. Very cool. The chicken and waffles is easy drinking, not too complex, but delicious, doing what it wants to do and doing it very well. It's sweet, it's easy. Solid. Twisted Sister, though, is a lot more of a journey. It is just an exploratory whiskey. You could sit with this and contemplate it. Very different whiskeys for very different experiences. I love that. I think that's really cool. Awesome. So, I've drank all of my Ollie's Chicken and Waffles because it's dangerously smooth. I'm going to pour myself a little bit more. And we're going to do a water test. Given that these are barrel strength, given that they're relatively high proof, I've been not great about doing water tests in the past, but I really want to do it on this because I want to explore what it does to these flavors. I want to see if it opens up the Ollie's Chicken and Waffles. Well, I can tell you on the nose, I don't like what happens to it. When you add water to it, the nose gets much quieter, it gets much simpler. A lot of that nuance is lost. That doesn't always mean that will happen on the taste, though. They are different experiences. Oh! Oh! Oh, that awakens something in it. Okay. I get some fruitiness now in the mid-palate of that chicken and waffles. I get a lot more of the spices. Oh, that's interesting. It becomes sweeter. It becomes almost citrusy. Oh, that's so cool. All right, let's see what happened with Twisted Sister. The Twisted Sister gets a lot quieter with water. I don't think I really like what water does to Twisted Sister. Everything just kind of turned down a couple notches. But the Ollie's, it opens up. It becomes really interesting and diverse and expressive. Ugh, I love it. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to ask a quick favor. I am working with the Naptown Bourbon Club to try to taste every Michter's pour available. I've got a list together of the Michter's pours I do not have. I'm going to tell you what they are right now. First off, I don't have any of just the base lines. I might go out and buy some bottles if nobody sends me them, but if you're in the area or if you want to send me some whiskey, I would love to have just the standard Michter's American, the standard bourbon, the standard rye, and the standard sour mash. Those would be great to have. There are sort of 3 different levels to Michter's products too. They have the standard issue, they have the rare, and they have the incredibly rare. Now I don't have any of the incredibly rare. That's the 20 years, the 25 years, the celebration sour mash. I don't have any of that stuff. If you've got a 20-year bourbon, a 25-year bourbon, a 25-year rye, any year sour mash celebration, and you're willing to send it to me, oh man, huge kudos to you. Thank you so much. I would love it. That would be a wonderful, wonderful whiskey to try in this lineup. So if that's something you're willing to do, hit me up, reach out to me any way you can. I'd love to try it. But I would be just as happy, well, almost just as happy, if somebody would send me a couple other pours, just 2 others. If I can find the toasted barrel rye and the barrel strength bourbon, then I'll have everything in the sort of middle tier of rarity from Michter's, which would be super cool. I'd love to do a full lineup of all these whiskeys. I'll film them all, I'll record them all. I can shout you out. Or one thing I'd like to start doing is shouting out causes. So if you have a cause you want me to shout out, a charity, you know, some sort of benefit that people need to know about, hit me up, let me know. Send me a whiskey, I might be able to shout that out for you. Give you a little 15-second ad. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to keep drinking all these beautiful whiskeys in front of me. You all keep drinking like professionals. Cheers.